Welcome back. And we're moving into our first segment for today. We're starting off with updates from the north on the effects of Tropical Storm Franklyn. Last night, after 8 p.m., Tropical Storm Franklyn made landfall just a bit north of Chetumal. So it was obviously very close to the border. And we had a News 5 team, Dwayne Moody and Rick Romero in the north, to be able to check in on how things were going during the course of the night. And so this morning, we have Dwayne Moody on early assignment, of course, who is ready to give us an update as to how things fared off last night. So let's go over to Dwayne.
Good morning, Marlene. Guys in the studio, good morning, Belize. I'm currently here in Corozal Bay, where this northern municipality survived its first tropical storm threat for the 2017 hurricane season. Now, sometime after 9 o'clock on Monday night, Tropical Storm Franklyn made its way on land near Mahawal, which is several miles north of Belize. Of course, since then and leading on to about 1 a.m., we saw that there were rains, a slight breeze, and that continued through the night until what you are seeing right now, which is basically a cold front here in Corozal. But you know, even as Tropical Storm Franklyn made landfall, we had several persons, up to 68 persons, seeking shelters within the Corozal District.
I think you could see Corozal has barely got any rain, so people are not as alarmed as we thought they would be. But all the shelters in place have been approved to be open, have been open. We have in Corozal Tongue about 48 shelteries total. From the last report that we got from the CEMO meeting, there are no other shelteries in the rest of the district. Chunosh, Kapabank, Sartineja, the shelters are open, but no shelteries as yet. Everything is in place. Corozal Tongue, we have taken care of our emergency plan for the Tongue from the Tongue Council, and as Vice Chairman of the NEMO Corozal, well, we're working together with NEMO.
Some areas, we know some areas of the Tongue that are flood-prone areas. What kind of advice would you have for those living there? What are you guys doing to address those people living in those areas?
Well, the people that are flood-prone areas in Tongue, they have been advised, which is the Chula Vista area and the Potsal area, which is why both shelters, one is the Our Lady of Guadalupe for the Chula Vista area has been opened, and we have about 44 shelteries there, and we have Church of Christ open for the Potsal area. Those are the two major areas that are prone to flooding. The rest of the Tongue is pretty much safe when it comes to flooding.
It stays as a calm from since the day, during the course of the day. We don't expect anything stronger than what is happening right now. Apparently, it looks like the system is drifting away from the northern part of the country.
The coastal shelters them that were in Progreso, Shunosh, and those villages, nobody has occupied those.
Nobody has been to these shelters. Apparently, they have been to friends and relatives if they had the need, right? But the shelters are not open there. I mean, it's open, but it's not occupied.
Over the course of the night, we took a ride over to the shelters. There were 4 persons at the Church of Christ School in Hall's Layout, and those persons were transferred to the Our Lady of Guadalupe shelter in Altamira. That brought those numbers to 68 persons, 32 adults, and 36 children. Majority of them from the Chula Vista area. We spoke with Victoria Evans, who spoke to us about having her babies there and her entire family to weather the storm.
Well, the whole family they out here because we live in our lowland areas and easy to get flood, so we be safe, we just come to the shelter.
Talk to us a little bit more about that. How many of you guys are here?
About 15, the most. Yes, we left stuff behind and things, but what we have that just the important documents and stuff that we want need in the longer run.
Was it a situation that you actually spoke to your other neighbors and they decided that they would come to the shelter too, or did you share that message with your other neighbors, or did they come on their own as well?
Well, we did share the message, and we live that like in our surrounded that lone family, and so we just tell different family members and then just do what they have to do and then come along with we too.
Okay, so how long will you guys be here? You came from earlier today, right? How long do you expect to be here?
Well, we come earlier this evening. We're not sure how long we are stay, mostly till after this finish.
One thing that was visibly seen is that the team here in Corozal, as well as residents, were well prepared for the pending threat. When we spoke with Mayor Gilberto Campos, he says that one can never be over-prepared in the case of weather systems.
You could never be over prepared for these things. That's why we have been working ever since the storm was out and making sure that the people are well informed about the situation, monitor the system. And fortunately for us, well, I don't think we'll be expecting as much winds, but we're still worrying about the rain. Like I said, Corozal has been pretty much dry for the whole day. And well, we're expecting the rains to come anytime now, but we could never be over-prepared.
There are some villages that have been requesting that we open the shelters, but if you notice the weather, how it looks, there is no need to overburden our human resources. So we don't open those shelters, and eventually they have to understand what's the situation. Where we think that they might have a problem, then we open that shelter.
Now, Marlene, there was a disturbing report coming out last night amidst the storm watch. Apparently, letters were issued to casinos to release employees so that they can be secured. And only Princess Casino complied by closing its doors and sending home its employees. NEMO reps confirmed that in the case of Las Vegas Casino, police and NEMO officers had to pay a visit to enforce the shutdown. Reports are that the supervisors were threatening employees' job security. That's really not cool, and of course they had to get involved. Additionally, transportation has started back. We've seen buses pass so far. We know that the Laguna Seca and the Nuevo Pueblo ferries, they closed overnight, and they were reopened at 6 o'clock this morning. The next NEMO meeting is scheduled for 8 o'clock. We will have more on that later tonight in our 6:30 newscast. I'm Dwayne Moody from Corozal Bay. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Dwayne Moody, for that update. Definitely a great recap as to the preparations there in Corozal town. We do have, of course, the all clear notice from NEMO, and I'm going to go ahead and share that with you at this time. This came in at 6 a.m. this morning. The National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, in collaboration with the National Meteorological Service, hereby informs the public that around 10:45 last night, Tropical Storm Franklyn made landfall with maximum sustained winds of 60 miles per hour on the eastern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula, north of Chetumal, near Pultecoba, Mexico. Tropical Storm Franklyn was centered over the southeast Yucatan Peninsula near 19.3 north latitude and 88.5 west longitude, or about 63 miles northwest of Corozal town. Franklyn was moving to the west-northwest at 14 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds of 50 miles per hour and gusts of 65 miles per hour. The minimum pressure is 998 millibars. Further weakening is expected as the center moves over land today. The tropical storm warning has been discontinued for the coast of Belize from Belize City to the Corozal District. NEMO hereby issues the all clear as Franklyn is no longer a direct threat to the country. According to information gathered from the district and city emergency committees, there are no reports of injuries. A total of 330 persons took to shelters, mainly in Corozal, on the Keys, and in Belize City. Approximately 2,157 persons voluntarily relocated from the islands to the mainland. The public is advised to stay on alert for possible flooding due to rainfall associated with the system as it moves slowly due northwest of the country over southern Mexico. Rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches with isolated higher amounts are possible. All right, so there you have it. We officially have the all clear from CEMO, and of course they are still advising people to be aware of the fact that there may be additional rainfall that can be experienced. And they also accounted for the number of persons who access shelters, and also they spoke of the people who voluntarily left the islands to come to the mainland. I also have a message from the Ministry of Health informing the public that all clinics in Belize District and the Keys will be up and running by 9:30 a.m. So once again, from the Ministry of Health, the public is advised that all clinics in the Belize District and the Keys will be up and running by 9:30 a.m. Right? And we do want everybody to know that the all clear once again has been declared for Belize. It was a rather unfortunate situation, I think, that Dwayne documented in Corozal, speaking of persons who were not allowed to go home and make preparations for their families. And you know, we've had many conversations on the show here about what is legally allowed for persons when there is an actual warning in place. I have to say one thing, and I'm sure in our phone calls that we're going to get into in just a bit with the CEMO coordinators, we are definitely seeing where people are taking the threat of storms more seriously. In looking around Belize City last night, it was a very quiet night. There were some places that were shuttered in anticipation of potential winds. I saw some buildings with sandbags in the event of flooding. And I think after the different experiences that we have had, it is good to see that we obviously are taking these potential threats of storms very seriously. Now, as we mentioned in our weather report today, while we can have a sigh of relief this morning, it doesn't mean that you abandon your hurricane plans. The middle of August through to October is considered the peak season for the Atlantic hurricane season. So we're really just entering the peak of the season. And it means that if we look at Franklyn specifically, how quickly it developed. You know, we were told on Friday to monitor the system. Saturday, we started to get a bit more information. And by Sunday, CEMO was activated, and we were looking at a potential tropical storm passing our way by Monday night. So I think it really reminds us of how quickly these storms can develop, and that you won't necessarily be able to access all the things that you need when the storms develop so rapidly. So if you have perhaps purchased items, it's a great idea to be able to store those non-perishables. Maybe you bought extra water. Keep that on the side as well, because you don't know if we will have another threat next week or next 2 weeks or next month. And it's a great way to minimize your expenses as well. Take a look at your hurricane plans, you know, whether you moved your vehicles, whether you were able to get around the way you needed to. Take a look at that with this experience and use it as a part of your preparation as you move forward. If you haven't gotten a plan in place, you still can do so. We remind you that the Belize Red Cross actually has some great pamphlets. You know, we've had them on the show as well, talking about putting together your family plan. They have some great instructional pamphlets. You drop by there, you pick it up, and it tells you exactly what you need to do, what conversations you need to have with the children and the elderly and everybody else in your household to ensure that everyone is prepared for any potential disaster. So I do want to acknowledge obviously the work of CEMO for keeping us updated, the Met Service who also kept us up to date, and one of the things that we were reminded of that we obviously saw to be true was to pay attention to our local reports versus the international reports. Or National Met Service and CEMO provided timely updates on the progression of the storm, and so we were able to know as of last night that it was going to make landfall a little bit north. I'm happy to see that Corozal, or Northern District, didn't have any of the major effects of the tropical storm force winds or rains. So that is also great as well. And I think it's great that people recognize that they live in a flood-prone area and they moved into the shelter. So we'll assume that they'll be returning back to their homes, and thankfully it'll still be there, and we're all safe this morning, right? And like I said, CEMO has issued the all clear as of 6 a.m. this morning, and it means that it's back to normal for the rest of us. We're going to get moving, and we actually have Mr. Levy from Corozal on the line. He'll provide us an update for this morning and let us know any additional details. Good morning, Mr. Levy. This is Marlene.
Yes, good morning, Marlene.
All right, thank you for taking the time to talk to us this morning. We just saw a bit of some of the preparations taking place last night, and we wanted to take the opportunity to be able to talk a bit about what's happening this morning within Corozal.
Okay, in Corozal, everything is back to normal. We received an all clear from our CEMO headquarters at 6 a.m. and everything was back to normal in the case of bus runs and boats, and everything was back to normal.
Yeah.
And we will be having a meeting at 8 just to pass it over, and then we'll be putting it over to the local media.
Okay.
Here in Corozal, just advising them that everything is back to normalcy.
Yeah. So the transportation is back up. Your ferries are opening once again.
That is right.
Okay. And
everything is back to normal.
now, obviously, Corozal was spared of any of the major effects of the tropical storm. And I want to ask you, from your own analysis, we know you've been doing this for a very long time in this particular capacity. How would you gauge the level of preparedness of the residents?
Well, everybody took heed to the advice that was given to them. People started to get, they did the last minute buying and shopping and moving around.
Mm-hmm.
So they were prepared, and they were conscious of what the situation was, because yesterday during the course of the day it looked like it was going to be a serious impact in terms of tropical storm. So the people were getting ready and getting prepared. So yes, the people heed to the advice given to them, and they roll out their family plans and decide where they're going to go and everything. So that's what we normally advise them during the course of the season.
Yeah.
So we only elaborate more whenever the system is approaching.
Yes, that was very encouraging to see. We saw that in Belize City as well. Now, we understand that you had some challenges, or we saw some challenges with some employers not allowing for their employees to secure their families. Is there going to be a follow-up conversation with these particular employers about their obligations to ensure that their employees have time to secure their families?
Definitely. Actually, it's only one employer that always gives us this kind of problem. And last year we had that problem, and we had to close down the business. And this year it repeated itself. It's just that it took a little bit longer. But we had that challenge, and what happens is that we are telling them that this is supposed to be a part of their hurricane plan. They must have a plan. And a part of that plan is getting enough time to the employees to go home and take care of their families and be ready for any possible impact. But they are reluctant. But it's only one.
Okay.
And we have discussed this year that we have to address this on another note with the employer, that we do not have this repetition of being reluctant in releasing his employees, no?
Okay, yes.
So we should be expecting that after this. We look forward that he would cooperate with us and get his employees off on time.
Yeah, of course.
And basically the challenge is for the employees, because in this particular case, some people live in Arinjoak, some people live in the villages. So if it was only moving from their work spot to Corozal town, it wouldn't be that much of a problem, but it makes it challenging for them reaching out all the way to Arinjoak after the buses have already made their runs. No?
Yeah. Yeah, that
So we want
definitely.
to avoid that.
Yeah, and I think it's only fair as well if you are able to think of the families and if they're the breadwinner or the person who would organize the family to be able to put their plan into action. These people need to have some kind of contact back at home. Mr. Levi, anything else that you would like to share with the public this morning as we have officially gotten the all clear from NEMO?
Well, actually, now it's just the hurricane season isn't over yet, and
Yes.
we're just asking people that whenever we have, if we have any other incident during this hurricane season, be prepared once again and roll out your plans and don't wait for the last minute. We got that tendency of waiting for the last minute to do a purchasing.
Okay.
And that's when the grocers have the tendency to gouge their prices, and,
Yeah.
and it makes it a challenge and it makes it a problem for them. So we're asking, do your plan in time and just be prepared if in case there is any future incident.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that check-in this morning.
Okay.
All right. Have a great day.
Yeah, you. Bye.
And that was, of course, Mr. Levi from Corozal. He is the district coordinator there and speaking about just the preparations that he saw in the Northern District. We're moving now to Ms. Parham, who is the NEMO coordinator in San Pedro, to check in how that particular island fared off. Good morning, Ms. Parham.
Good morning.
How are you?
I am okay, and how are you?
We're good. Of course, we're all very happy to see that we seem to have been spared of the impact of...
Yes, we are very fortunate.
Yes. So tell us a bit about how things were on San Pedro last night. Did you experience any strong winds, rains?
No, we were very fortunate. There was no rain, there was no strong winds. The waves were casual and moderate, and like I said, both San Pedro and Key Calker had just an overcast sky last night, and we are all happy this morning.
Fantastic. Ms. Parham, tell us a bit about the preparations yesterday. We are told from NEMO this morning in their all clear notice that there were several people who voluntarily evacuated the island. Tell us about your experience as you were reaching out to the different residents.
Well, from since we got the information from NEMO that there was a tropical storm approaching the island, we had convened our emergency meetings and activated our EOC for Belize World South, Key Calker, San Pedro. The evacuation yesterday was just for the public on a very precautious note. 1,276 people evacuated the island via boat vessels. 612 people evacuated the island Tropic Air, and 169 people evacuated the island from Maya Island Air.
So it is obviously clear that some people are carefully assessing their homes and the area that they live and assessing the potential threats that they may face, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
The residents of San Pedro, like I said and I said last night, they're very vigilant and receptive when it comes to any storms. They use their initiative and their experience to make necessary precautions and preparations, and they are always advised to adhere to the advisory being issued from NEMO.
Yeah. And I know there was an indicator yesterday in the messages coming out of NEMO that there could have been potential damages to piers. We haven't seen any damage whatsoever, right?
No, there's no damage whatsoever.
Okay. Now, what would you say to the residents of San Pedro about their level of preparedness for this particular storm, and of course to remain vigilant as we are still in the hurricane season?
I'd like to, first of all, heartfully commend the residents of both San Pedro and Key Calker. And I'd like to say a heartfelt thanks to all the elected officials, the public officers, community members, NEMO volunteers, to have had a great collaborative approach in working together in times of disasters to best serve both our communities. I know from experience that I've seen, and I've said it over and over, the residents of both communities are well prepared when it comes to storms. They know what to do. They have their family plan, and we can only continue to warn them to be precautious for the hurricane season.
Yeah. How many people you had accessing shelters last night?
Well, from our reports last night, people accessing shelters at San Pedro, they were close to a little bit 30 to 35 people. We had some people leaving the shelters. For Key Cocker, there was an approximation of 7 people.
Okay. So you had more people leaving the island than seeking the shelters. All right. Well, Ms. Parham, we know it's a very easy conversation for all of us to have this morning, as we didn't receive the winds and we didn't receive the rains, but it's always great to hear that people have been able to effectively put plans in place and do what they can to preserve their life and property. So thank you as well for checking in with us this morning. And we also got a notice from the Ministry of Health that your public clinics will be up and running as of 9:30 this morning in the Keys. So that's, of course, to the residents in San Pedro. Thank you once again.
Thank you too, and have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. And there you have it. As I said, you know, this is a wonderfully calm conversation to be having at this time, and we are very grateful for it. We checked in with 2 of the NEMO coordinators. We spoke to Mr. Levi in Corozal and to Ms. Parham in San Pedro. Of course, they work within the communities that are most north that would have felt the impact of the storm, and it seems to be across the board that everybody was spared of the excessive winds and rains that were to come with the storm. So that's wonderful news for us. We can be thankful. Once again, we will all say the same message. It doesn't mean that we let down our guard. It doesn't mean when the next threat comes about that we take it lightly. It means that we do exactly what we did this time, or even more if you weren't prepared, and ensure that you will always maintain that level of preparedness. The peak season we're moving into the peak season for the hurricane season at this time, and so you want to ensure that you keep your plans in place, or get them in place if you haven't done so yet. That's it for our updates this morning on Tropical Storm Franklyn. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about scholarship opportunities available through United World Colleges. So stay tuned.